Hey guys, Epidemic 2020 here, and today I want to talk about a term called mansplaining. Now, mansplaining has actually made its way into the dictionary, and the dictionary definition goes like this. It's a man explaining something, particularly to a woman, in a manner regarded as patronizing or condescending. Now, I actually agree that mansplaining is real and that it's a problem. Men do often talk down to women, sometimes without even realizing it. I actually identify as a feminist. I'm a humanist in particular because I think that all people are of value, and a feminist because I think that women are particularly discriminated against and deserve to be treated as if they're of equal value to men. It's actually for those reasons that I'm against using a term like mansplaining. I think mansplaining is actually inconsistent, or the term itself is inconsistent with the type of feminism that I just described. And there's two primary reasons I think that term undermines those values. The first one, to take a stereotypical negative behavior and label it after a specific gender is to create a sexist term. Think about all the times that we've done that with, in reference to women, right? You take a negative stereotype and you basically name it after some type of feminine adjective. Two of them that come to my mind are woman drivers or bridezillas. Let's pick on woman drivers real quick. Any gender can be a bad driver. And if you wish to insult someone for their poor driving, and you disparagingly refer to the person as a woman driver, then what you're doing is perpetuating a negative stereotype. And even worse, you're linking that negative behavior with a particular gender. A person's gender should not be tied together with an insult or a negative trait. Now, it's entirely possible to combat sexism without embracing inherently sexist terminology. Using sexist terminology while trying to combat sexism seems to do nothing other than allow opponents of feminism to point out that kind of blatant, hypocritical double standard and give them the appearance of taking the moral high ground. It's very poor word choice, and I think it's an ineffective way to point out the problem. And that brings me to the second problem, and I think honestly this is the more important of the two. Even if we ignore that the term itself seems to be sexist in name, there's another way in which I think the term mansplaining becomes unmistakably sexist in usage, and I think that's the more important of the two problems there. Mansplaining conveys a stereotype, and even though I think the negative stereotype actually holds true, stereotypes themselves are inherently problematic. Stereotypes, even the ones you don't believe in, prime a person to see the world in a particular sort of way. So even if I believe that the stereotype is wrong, it still influences the way I think. Now, there's a very common stereotype that says that women are bossy. And even if that stereotype is not accurate, just being aware of the stereotype will make you more aware of a woman acting in a way which could possibly be construed as bossy. If a man acts in a bossy way, it's very likely that you'll view that as a coincidence, or at least not view it as indicting of his entire gender. And the same thing would be done for a woman if you weren't aware of the stereotype. But once you become aware of the stereotype, it biases you and makes you see the world in a particular light. Just being aware of that stereotype. Stereotypes are like a sticky pad in your brain, and every time you see information which conforms to the stereotype, you end up remembering it, where you otherwise would have just forgotten about it and moved on. So stereotypes kind of end up proving themselves, even if they're not actually true. Your brain will kind of make you think that they're true. They're self-fulfilling in this way.
Hey, isn't this also known as confirmation bias?
Exactly. It's a type of confirmation bias. Now, here's where it actually gets really problematic. The result of this internalized expectation that stereotypes create is that it actually primes you to see the world through the lens of that stereotype. And if the stereotype says that women are bossy, just being aware of the stereotype can actually bias us. It's that bias that makes you look at the world, and you can see normal behaviors like being passionate or being confident, and it will make you mislabel those things as something like being bossy or crazy. So we take normal behaviors like confidence, and our brain will force us to relabel it as something like bossy. So just being aware of the stereotype biases us. Our brains set out to make the world conform to our stereotypical, internalized expectations. So pretty soon it ceases to matter whether or not the individual in question actually conforms to the negative stereotype or not, because our biased brains will convince us that it does either way.
Alright, mansplaining is just one particular example of a negative stereotype. When you prime people to expect a man to explain things in a patronizing or condescending way, though that will become an internalized expectation. Soon, any explanation performed by men, whether patronizing or condescending or not, will be mislabeled as mansplaining. Even this video, although not patronizing or condescending, could and likely will be mislabeled as mansplaining, simply because a man was doing the talking at the beginning. When the word mansplaining is used to shut down any explanation simply because it comes from men, mansplaining then becomes unmistakably sexist. To test whether or not this happens, just check out the comment sections below. Those who are not likely to have made it this far into the video are the same ones who are likely to call this video mansplaining, simply because it has the thumbnail of a picture of a man. The proliferation of negative stereotypes is the enemy. It is an enemy of humanism, which makes it an enemy of feminism. So to recap, don't tell guys they're mansplaining, because it hurts their little man feelings.
So as always, test everything, hold on to the good.